Hello, everybody. It's me, Angela Walters, and I'm excited that you're joining me for another live chat every Thursday at 3 p.m. Central. Most every Thursday, I get on here and we talk about quilting, something quilting related. I answer your questions live, and we just have a plain old great time. So I'm super excited that you're here today. I'm coming to you from outside of Kansas City, Missouri, where the weather is glorious. We rarely get so many beautiful days in a row, and I was tempted to play hooky and go do something outside, but I like my live chats too much, so I thought we would hang out. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about quilting designs with the dot ruler and tell you a little bit about our new Block of the Month program that registration is opening up for, so lots of fun information. And remember, if you're catching this live right now, you can type your questions in the chat. Jessica, as always, is here monitoring that for me, and she'll give me the questions at the end so that I can answer them and help you out. If you're not watching live, no worries. You just leave your comments or questions in the comment section, and I get on there from time to time to answer them. And I know our other quilters are really great about helping out as well. So with no further ado, let's get to the good stuff. Well, first of all, Build-a-quilt is our exclusive Block of the Month program, and it only opens up once a year, and that is this time of year. So I just want to tell you a little bit about it, just in case you were interested in building a quilt with us. Build-a-quilt is the brainchild of Joni, who works for me, and it's our Block of the Month, but better. So it's a program where you get to kind of create a quilt that's totally different. So it's not a program that's like most other Block of the Months. Not only is it a different format, but it's totally exclusive. I design the patterns and the fabric that come with it, and it's just been a great time. And again, it opens up at this time every year. It starts in November, and one-time registration fee gets you all the patterns and block fabric for 10 blocks, and then you have the option to add optional layout kits to give it a different look. So I have been very busy putting that together, and I can't wait to show you a little bit about it. So how it works is, if you're doing the online version, it's only $74.95, and you get the little blocks mailed to you every month. You get the fabric and the pattern to make one block. We also have an in-store and international option as well. And then you get to pick between 3 different colorways. So here are the 10 blocks that we'll be doing. In May, I will be releasing 3 optional layout kits. So you can pick the layout for your blocks, and then you can pick the fabric. So the first colorway for Build-a-quilt is petals and lace. And for those of you that know me, you know that I'm not a huge purple fan, but Joni has been advocating for purple for quite a while. And so to keep her happy and to keep her from quitting, I put together petals and lace. So it's beautiful purples, mint green, some creams, a little bit of gray, just some soft florally sweet petals and lacy prints. So perfect for those purple lovers out there. Now, those of you that did the last free motion challenge will probably recognize this. It's the Westward colorway, and it's based off the coordinating prints from that last free motion challenge. So we're talking bold, saturated colors with watermelons and teals, a beautiful gray for the background, and of course some wood grain and some geometric prints. So that's going to be really cool there. And you can see the colors of the blocks in that layout. So I just think it's so cool that the same blocks will look totally different depending on the fabrics that you use. So that's the second option. But if purple's not your thing and you're not much of a watermelon color either, how about abstractions? So this is the beautiful like grays and mustard kind of gold color, that really trendy color that's in right now. Beautiful shades and prints, very abstract, geometric, a little bit of a different look than the other 2. And so you can see the example here of the blocks in that colorway. And so again, this starts in November. Registration will be open until then, and there's a link in the description box that has all the information about that. Again, it's only one-time registration fee, and you get all those blocks. And then you can add the optional finishing kits later. It's a lot of fun. We come live from our Build-a-quilt Block of the Month meeting every month, and it's a good time. But if you have any specific questions, you can leave an email on the contact page at our website and let us know, and super looking forward to that. All right, but let's get to the good stuff, the actual topic of today's live chat, the dot ruler. Now, last, 6 months ago, I came out with 3 new rulers. In the last 2 weeks, plus now this week, I've been kind of going into a little bit more detail of each of them and giving you some design ideas on how to use them. Now, for all of the rulers that I put out recently, I have free downloadable PDF quilting diagrams. So you can print those out and you can have it right next to you and work through those designs. And so this is exactly the same as that. There's a link in the description box that will show you how to get those downloadable PDFs. Now, even if you don't have the dot ruler, I'm going to show you some geometric designs that you can create with your straight edge rulers. But first, I'm going to talk a little bit about what was going through my mind when I came up with this ruler. You might think, well, it's just straight edges. I could just use a straight edge ruler to do that, and you definitely could. But with this particular ruler, there's less repositioning of that ruler, and you can get those geometric shapes and those angles really quick and efficiently. It's not obvious looking at it what amazing things it does, so I have broken out some designs step by step with diagrams to show you just how cool it is. And then to give it a little bit more versatility, I included a cutout on the inside that's kind of like a curvy, pointy kind of shape. So it's one of those rulers, again, that you might look at it like, I don't know, but I bet by the time I'm done showing you all the things it does, you might love dot as much as I do. Again, you can get those quilting diagrams, and even if you don't have a dot ruler, you can still use some of these design ideas to take your straight edge rulers and add some really cool effects to your quilts. So first, let's talk about how we're going to quilt along the outside. Anytime we work around the outside of a ruler or the outside of a point, if I were to go around it, I'm going to get more of a curve. And that's because of that 1/4 inch in between the needle and the edge of the foot. So even though this ruler looks like a kite kind of shape, I do need to do a little bit of repositioning to get that nice sharp point on the sides. Now, if you wanted something a little curvier, you could just go all the way around it. But let me show you kind of how you're going to work around this ruler. So starting at the bottom of one side, you're going to quilt along the edge until you get almost to the point on the side. This is the part that I was telling you about. If you go around it, you'll get a curve. So I need to slide it down just a bit because I want a sharp point. So I'm going to slide it down and align the edge with that quilted line. So instead of taking my straight edge ruler and rotating it, I'm just kind of sliding it down and over nice and quick. Once that's in place, then I can quilt up the next side until I get to the needle stop. So this does have a needle stop at the top, nice and helpful reminder of when to reposition. So once I get to that needle stop, it's time to work on the other side. So I'm going to take the ruler and just slide it over and do the same on the other side. So shifting the ruler, taking a moment, using those registration lines to make sure that it's staying in position, and then repeating the same thing I did on the other side, quilting to the point, pausing, repositioning, and then continuing on down. So I'm going to get a shape that's actually slightly smaller than my ruler because of that repositioning, but the effect is that I don't have to change the orientation of that ruler at all to get the different angles of that shape. So this is really nice for those of you that might be working on a long arm, because maybe it's difficult for you to work on this way or this way. Now, one of the benefits of working on a sewing machine is you can change the orientation of your quilt, but this will still be helpful for those of you on a sewing machine as well. The less repositioning of the ruler just makes it a little bit quicker and easier to move on with your quilt. Now, after you quilt that shape, that kind of kite shape that's open at the bottom, that wedge, we're going to do some different things with that shape, and I'll show you how you can use it in different areas of your quilt. Now, this is just kind of like me talking about my kids, right? This is, look how cute my kid is. Look what all the things it can do. So don't let it be overwhelming or annoying. It's just me making a persuasive argument for you to love dot or straight geometric shapes as much as I do. So once you quilt that shape, you can leave your needle in the down position and then switch your ruler back over to that side that you started from and repeat. Continuing working your way across. So again, going up the side, shifting it down, moving up, and then doing the same on the other side. And what's going to happen is as you continue to reposition with no traveling, you're going to get this really cool overlapping geometric shape. Now this is a pretty tall line. I don't have the exact measurements, but that wedge is pretty tall. So it's going to be great for those bigger areas, bigger blocks, bigger background areas. And it looks so intricate, but it really is so easy in how it goes together. And here's a quilted example of it just so you can kind of get an idea of what that looks like when it's actually quilted. Again, looks super difficult, but it really isn't. No traveling. I just move that ruler over and over, and the overlap is what creates that shape. So even if you don't have a dot ruler, you can still create that shape, that kite shape, and overlap them to fill in those bigger areas that can sometimes be a little daunting when you don't know how you want to quilt them. So let's revisit that shape. That's that same shape that we can make, that open wedge. But if we have a bigger area, or maybe I just want to make it look even more intricate, we can start flipping it over. So I can take that ruler, quilt that shape just like we saw, leave the needle in the down position, and then rotate the ruler and flip it over so I can do the same in the opposite direction. Again, working along one side, repositioning when I get to the point, and then continuing until I get to the end. So what I have here is just that same shape reversed. And this is a really classic, or really one of those go-to ways that I use my rulers in a lot of different ways. I like to take it and see what happens if I flip it back and forth. So any ruler that you might have laying around, try that out. You might find some cool designs that come out with it. Well, from that point, I'm going to rotate the ruler again and go the next direction. And so now I'm going to get a design that's much bigger. That's going to fill in a lot bigger area. And again, no traveling, no marking. However, if you do need a little help, maybe marking a couple registration lines just to use to center it will be helpful. But really, really fun in how that goes together. Again, I'm still doing the same thing I did to create that shape. And when I'm done, you can kind of see that design come together. So this is going to be nice, again, for bigger areas still. And what I think is great about rulers is that you can use them to fit all different areas. You can make it, and we're going to see in a second, fit smaller areas and bigger areas. Use your rulers in a lot of different ways so that you get the most bang for your quilting buck. And here we can see a quilted example of what that looks like. So again, really cool, geometric. I think it's kind of fun looking. Perfect for solid or tonal fabrics. This is not going to be something I put in a busier fabric where you can't see the quilting. The fact of the matter is quilting with rulers does take a little bit longer. And so if it's going to take me an investment of my time, I'm going to make sure it's somewhere you can see it. So maybe not for those super busy fabrics, but definitely for areas where I want that nice geometric look with that design. Now, if we take that shape, remember we've kind of flipped it over, now we can actually rotate around and we can create a fun block design as well. So imagine this in bigger blocks, or imagine quilting it and then rotating it and overlapping them a bit. So using that shape in a lot of different ways. And you may have paid for the whole ruler, but you don't have to use the whole thing. You can use just the top part to fill in borders that are a little bit more narrow. So there are registration lines on the ruler, and there's one right along that gray line. If you center your ruler on there, you're going to get a geometric overlapping shape that's kind of fun for your more narrow borders. So positioning the ruler, again, using those reference lines are key to really help you make sure the ruler stays straight to your area. On a long arm, you have the quilt all spread out. It can be easy to see where you're going, but that border might not be pieced straight. If I've pieced it, it probably isn't. So keeping it straight to the border is super important. But on a sewing machine, your quilt might be turned any which way, so use those reference lines to make sure that the design is staying where it needs to be. And just like we saw, I'm going to quilt up the side, except it's only going to be a little bitty bit. Position the ruler down so that I can then work up to the point, and then switch the ruler to the other side and come back down and repeat. And so I'm going to get this kind of kite shape, but just like it's like the top of the house, the roof of the house, not the whole thing. And so just like we saw with the previous design, I'm going to leave the needle in the same position, move the ruler, and continue on. And so what I get is this geometric kind of overlap. It looks like half of a wishbone. Again, great for a little bit bigger borders, not huge borders, probably about 3-inch borders or so. But it's a totally different look. And if you want to quilt it to death, because you love quilting as much as I do, you can take that same design and quilt it again, but flip it over. So in the center of this picture, you can kind of see along that strip where I've done just that. I quilted one row of that design on the bottom, then I flipped the ruler over and did the same on the other side. So that overlapping bit just gives it a little bit more intricate look. Another one of my go-to tricks for using rulers, try flipping it around and overlapping them to create different shapes. You'll be surprised on the cool designs you can create. But if you want to work along the inside of the cutout, maybe you have a smaller sashing still, right? An inch or two sashing, you can use it to quilt a chevron, and you can work along that cutout. What's nice about quilting points within a cutout is you don't have to do any repositioning. You're just going to go up one side and then down the other, using that reference line to keep it straight, and then just continuing on. And so just giving you that nice chevron if you just want something quick and easy. Again, one of the benefits of the ruler is I'm not repositioning it for each one, which might not sound like it takes a lot of time, and it's not like a game ender, but it's really nice just to be able to slide the ruler over and not have to do any repositioning with it. So that was kind of what was going through my mind when I came up with it. So looking at the cutout, that cutout shape is going to give you this elongated, pointy kind of shape. It's a little bit different, but I love how you can create some different stuff with it. One thing I want to point out is at the bottom of the ruler where it's narrow, it's not actually gonna fit exactly to that foot because I need to have room to come back out, right? If it was exactly a 1/4 inch spacing, our ruler foot would stick. So the points at the bottom come really close, but they don't quite touch. But what's fun is you can create that shape, travel along, and then quilt it again for your borders or for your bigger areas. And the amount that you travel in between will determine whether your design overlaps or doesn't. So, or you could even spread them out even more. Just depends on, how much time you have to work on that design. So again, using the inside of the cutout is a lot of fun to create some different shapes, especially if you want something a little skinnier, it's not something so wide, and something that you don't have to do any repositioning to get those points. And here we can see kind of on the upper middle, that exact shape quilted out. That first section where I traveled in between a little bit more, and that next little section where they overlap just to give it a little bit more dense looking design. What's great about this is usually when I overlap a border design, I have to quilt it and then come back and overlap it. This particular one, I'm overlapping it as I go. So this is perfect for those borders that you don't want to have to keep working back and forth. You just want to go along and be done when you get to the end. All right, you can also use just a part of the cutout. So we're starting to see a routine here, like kind of my go-to ways to use my rulers. Instead of overlapping them or flipping them or using just part of it, using just part of it is a great way to create different effects. And I like how I get that nice gentle curve with just the bottom half of that cutout. So I just used that to create a gently sloped pointed arc shape. So using that bottom reference line to put along whichever seam or guideline I'm using, I can quilt up along one side of that cutout, just like that. And there you can see the reference lines along the seam. Then I'm going to shift the ruler over. I don't have to rotate it or anything. I'm just shifting it right over, taking a second to make sure those reference lines are lined up, and then quilting my way down to the bottom. So unlike necessarily like an arc ruler where you'd have to rotate or flip it over, I just have to shift that ruler over. Really pretty fun. And then I can repeat, go up that next side, and then come back down the next. You can kind of see how that step by step, how that goes together. So these are going to give me a little bit more pointed arcs. And of course, just like all the other designs, if I wanted to, I could overlap those just a bit. I could quilt another row so that's offset. It's totally up to you. But you can also take that cutout, instead of using it, up and down, I can flip it to its side and create an elongated shape. But if you notice the way the cutout works, if I start at the bottom and quilt along it, I'm going to end up where I started. Well, if I want to quilt these in a row, I'm actually going to go about it a little bit different. And again, this is something that you can use with those other rulers that you might have laying around the house. I'm going to position my ruler and quilt along just half of that cutout. So that elongated shape starting at the bottom or the left side, ending at that top, but not coming home. I'm just going to shift the ruler over and continue quilting just that one side of the ruler, kind of working my way along the area. Again, use those reference lines to make sure it's staying straight. But I do want to pause actually right here and say, these rulers or any rulers that you use are just a tool. They're not there to give you perfection. They're there to make it easier to get that shape-ish, right? So it's going to slip, it's going to move around. You're just going to get it close. You're going to move on. I promise it's going to look great. So don't get kind of like too wrapped up in the, oh no, it's not perfectly straight. Those reference lines are guides. They're there to help you, but it's not a hard, fast rule that it has to be perfect. So I can keep quilting along my merry way until I decide that I'm done with that or done with the area, and now it's time to work my way back. So I'll just, instead of repositioning the ruler, I'll just quilt along the bottom and then shift it over and continue on. Again, really cool that I don't have to rotate the ruler. I can just shift it back and forth as I'm quilting. And so you can see here, leaving the needle down when I get to the end, shifting it over, and continuing it on gives me that kind of overlap shape. Now, I like that. It looks a little different, a little weird. It looks much better, I think, if you overlap them. So the next one is just going to be offset. It's going to start in a little bit different spot. I like it overlaps about halfway, but as long as it's consistent, it's going to look good. And I'm going to do the same thing. So quilting that top row and then flipping it over and quilting back. So great for those borders, like I said, where you want a little bit more detail, or those areas where you want something that frames the element and really kind of makes it show off. It's a lot of fun. You can also, this is where I start feeling like an infomercial, but wait, there's more for the same price. You can also take that ruler, take that technique we just saw, but rotate it and flip it around. Now might be where I lose some people, but you can start combining some of these things to see what effects you can get. So I quilted the first half, and then just rotate the ruler so that the next shape is, mirror imaging. Again, it's just going to give me a different look. Maybe it's too much to think of for you, but I really like how it gives it a different kind of shape. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and I can continue on until I'm done. But then, just like that last technique, I'm going to work my way back to where I started. So I'm going to work on the other side of the ruler, repositioning, shifting it over until I get back to the starting point. So perfect if I just want that little bit of, that little detail. Just looks so elegant and just, a little bit of curvy, a little bit of pointy. It just makes my heart so happy. And if you want, you can overlap those as well, right? So one shape can create basic designs, or you can keep building off of it and create something even more intricate. So here I'm doing the same thing, except I'm just flipping it around a little bit at the beginning and then returning back. And so then I have that kind of shape that overlaps. Looks really cool and pretty different. And I say this a lot, but when I get my rulers or any new ruler, I load up a piece of fabric, I try a lot of different designs, and I cut out the ones I like. So you might try a design, it might not work, but you might try one and you might think it looks pretty cool. All right, so taking that same shape, we can also make motifs. And I'm not going to go into too much detail about this because the downloadable quilting diagrams do have step-by-step how to do this. But taking any shape and rotating it around a center point, it's going to create a cool motif, and it really will help determine the size of your ruler will determine the size of your motif. So it's a fun way to really create some different shapes. Also, combining that chevron that we saw from the inside of the cutout with a straight edge can give us some banner kind of shapes. They look like little pennants, kind of fun little different shapes. So combine the two. If you have a cutout ruler, try combining the cutout with the outside and see what you can come out with. Combine your cutout with another cutout ruler you have laying around. That's where you're really going to get a lot of that versatility out of your rulers. And it's just another example, just quilting those chevrons and using the straight edge to travel in between, or use it to do some chevron-shaped echoing. Really a fun way to go about it. And then this is kind of like my last little picture examples of the quilts I put together with this ruler. In the center there, those triangles, kind of quilting those chevron triangles and then connecting them just to create a nice little geometric shape. But again, instead of having to rotate the ruler each time, I can just keep it in one place and shift it over. Makes it nice and easy. And there's a little bit closer up of that. So I know that's a lot of pictures. That's a lot about me, a lot of talking about my ruler. But when you're working with any ruler that you have laying around, especially if it's a straight edge ruler or a cutout ruler, try creating some different shapes and layouts with it. I think you might be surprised with how versatile it can be. So hopefully we have some questions that have come through. No questions? I did that good a job. That's awesome. If you have more questions about using rulers in general, if you're watching this later and you're like, I don't know how to machine quilt with a ruler, I have a whole video series, the Free Motion Challenge Quilting Along, Machine Quilting with Rulers, where I show you how to use different types of rulers in different kinds of ways. And so you're welcome to go check that out on my YouTube channel and work through that. You can pick and choose which type of rulers you want to look at, or start from the beginning and work through all of them. And about the Free Motion Challenge, I have lots of questions about when my next video series is going to come out. Fingers crossed, we get to announce it the middle to the end of October. So October should be the month, and I'm super excited to show you what that is. It's looking really good. I can't wait to share the details. All right, again, if you have any questions, leave them in the comments and I'll answer those the best I can. If you have any questions or want to find out the downloadable PDF, the links to that, or the link to the Build-a-quilt Block of the Month registration, more information about both, click the link in the description box below. And I'll be back next Thursday with another live chat. Until then, everybody stay safe and happy quilting.